Now on the mood in Israel now. We can cross to Jerusalem to join Yaakov Katz. He's a senior fellow at the Jewish People Policy Institute, a former editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post. So good morning, Yaakov, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
1 year on from these horrific events of October the 7th, how would you describe the mood in Israel now?
It's a country still in mourning. It's a country that still feels the terrible pain of that tragedy that took place a year ago, the greatest massacre of Jews since, on a single day since the Holocaust, 1,200 people murdered, and the fact that 251 were taken hostage, 101 of those people still being held in the Gaza Strip. And even when we think of that, Lise, the possibility, the prospect that it might even be more than 101, we know of the reports of sexual abuse, of rape, the fact that women are still there. A year has gone by. Is it possible that one of them has given birth to a child? The pain is really immeasurable, I think, for the Israeli people, whose hearts are pierced every single day, knowing that there are still people being held in some dark dungeon and terrorist tunnel inside Gaza, and the fact that we still are at war. I don't think anyone would have imagined a year ago that we would still be pretty much in the same place, yes, with some victories, yes, with some accomplishments, yes, with a change to the region, but this country is still at war, and that is a hard pill to swallow.
As you know, night after night, the families of the hostages gather in the streets to call for a ceasefire, to say more should be done to bring their loved ones home. And the polls, which showed a very strong backing for this war in the early months of it, now seems to show that more Israelis believe that it is time to prioritize the hostages, that the military objectives have been met. How do you see the mood?
Well, I think that most Israelis look at the Gaza Strip, at least. Lebanon is a different scenario for the time being, but they look at Gaza. They see that Israel has pretty much achieved most of its military objectives. It has not destroyed completely Hamas, but it has broken the back of all of the Hamas brigades and battalions. It has eliminated most of the top commanders of Hamas. Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas and the mastermind of October 7th, still remains at large. But most of Hamas has been destroyed and its infrastructure. And what's missing, though, is that political resolution, that day after plan, the exit strategy, who is going to fill the vacuum that now has been created in Gaza. And I think, unfortunately, we've yet to see the creation of what that plan will look like. And that is what led, I think, to this renewed operation in northern Gaza, because in the absence of having someone who can take the reins over governing the Gaza Strip from Hamas, because it has been weakened so severely, we do not have someone else to be there, and that means that Hamas can reconstitute itself. And that's why Israel is once again operating in the area of Jabalia, northern Gaza. There has to be a political match to the military accomplishments, and we've yet to achieve that objective. So people want to see at least the hostages come home. 101, half of them believed to still be alive a year later. That is something that can be achieved potentially today if there was only a partner for those negotiations on the other side.
And Yaakov, as someone who follows this war so closely, is it worrying for you that across the border and here in southern Israel, there's just a mile away, that most of Gaza, according to the UN, lies in utter ruin, that most parts of it are now uninhabitable, and that it could take decades to remove the rubble. And there is a worry that this will lay the seeds for another generation and more war in the future. Does this also weigh on your mind?
It definitely weighs on my mind, and I think it's something that we should all be thinking about and giving some pause to. There has been a tragedy in the Gaza Strip and to the innocent civilians of Gaza. I think, though, that the responsibility for that least lies on the shoulders of Hamas. Hamas brought this tragedy upon the Palestinians of the Gaza Strip. Israel did what any country would do, which is to defend itself and to push back and to defeat its enemy. And that is something that Israel, unfortunately, has been coerced into that war on October 7th and continues to have to defend its borders in the north, in the south, and to fight on 7 different fronts as the country that is most attacked and threatened anywhere in the world today. But we also have to keep in mind is that for there to be a true peaceful coexistence one day between Israel and the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip or anywhere else, we need to have a thorough, comprehensive de-radicalization process. And until that happens, and you're right, this tragedy, this war, could lead to a further radicalization, but we need to have a de-radicalization that can eventually lead to a coexistence. Because as long as people in Gaza want to continue to kill, destroy, rape, and kidnap Israelis, there will not be peace here in this region.
Yaakov Katz, Senior Fellow at the Jewish People Policy Institute, thank you for joining us with your reflections. Let's bring in my colleague.